I wonder if this somehow fixed something. I'm really not sure. That would be a little weird if it somehow did. Not entirely sure if this is even working, but we shall see. Okay, so far so good. Let me just go ahead and throw on the little 10-minute timer to see if this works. Oh, frick, edit. This is easily the goofiest start to these live streams that I've ever seen. So I had to switch, okay. It's just all technical stuff, but hopefully this stream will now work. Hopefully this one will work. Yeah, this one was a goofy start. I had to like create a new stream, and when I did, I forgot that like the thing was like set to be what do you call it? Like private. That's not good. That's not good. All right, which live stream are we watching? This should be the only live stream, you guys. So thanks for hanging in there. I still have no idea why the original one totally freaked out, and I'm kind of like fingers crossed hoping that this stream just doesn't freak out, because when I first started that other stream, it totally just was not having it. Now, like fingers crossed, because I still obviously have not like started the whole like choral part of the show, and I still need to do that. So I'm gonna like put in the other file that I need, and it could go sideways. So let me try this real quick. Fingers crossed. Hopefully that did not just make this thing just implode. Did I get my hair cut? Yes. Okay. Not freezing. I think we're good. We'll see. We'll see. There's still like things that I could fix. And if things go like really, really bad, I will run this back tomorrow if need be. Hopefully that's not the case. But I have no real great idea as to why the initial thing didn't start off so well. Like, I had already restarted the computer, fired it up, and I was just getting like just red death all over my broadcast software. And I was like, well, that's not good. Check the internet. Internet's fine. Checked everything on the YouTube end. Everything's fine. The only problem is nothing's working right. So I apologize for that, you guys. Hopefully I didn't lose too many of you on the initial. All right, so I'm going to pop out the chat here so I can see it a little bit better. Hopefully this goes all right. All righty. Yeah, Jordan M. Goals in the internet pipes. Yeah, you are not kidding. Let's see. All righty. So, real quick before the internet gremlins kick me off again, I'm going to quickly say my quick thank you to the Patreon patrons and all the different sponsors. So real quick, let's do the corporate sponsors first. Ecotech, Coral View, and Polyp Lab. Thank you guys so much. I wish it could have been like a smoother start to all this, but we work with the. It's what's the phrase? Like you go to war with the army that you have. Yeah, that's us right now. All right. On the Patreon side, real quick, Big Lord Chi, Brandy Camp, who's in chat right now, Harkins Aquatics, who I'm going to be seeing next week sometime, Tasha Radich, Elaine Martinassi, Alan Jackson, Ann Lewis, Christopher Martin, Chuck Admire, Ernie Wallace, Greg Zimmerman, Jordan Marty, Keith Singer, Kyle Jameson, Lisa Clow, Lynn Holt, Michael Shelley, Puddle Aquatics, Rebecca Hall, Reef Infidel, Ryan Baker, Sean Howie, Skylar Korn, Sue Hemmons, The Classroom Reef, Thomas Tarrant, Tim Garner, and Trevor Joseph Overbeck. And on the YouTube side of things, let's look at our friends there. Hello? No, not here at all, guys. Not here at all. Actually, I don't even want to be on the screen, guys. How did I end up there? That is so bizarre. Okay. Maybe here. All right. Finally. Okay, we got Stories Reef, Tampa Bay Aquaculture, Herb777, Keith Holland, Justin Harden, and 328 Reef. Thank you guys. Okay, so far so good. It looks like the stream isn't absolute death just yet. Of course, the corals haven't started yet, but you know what? We've been a little ahead of, having to do a little bit of this. So the idea was to start at like 2 p.m. So I'm just gonna start it now. Okay, fingers crossed, you guys. Hopefully it doesn't just bomb. It's always a worry when you hit that button to go to that broadcast file. Round 2 stream. Hello everyone and Dan. We'll do it live, you guys. We'll do it live. Oh man. This is what is like the YouTube karma. It's like you hit that 100,000 subscriber mark, you get the fancy plaque and everything, and it's like, oh, your first live show? Yeah, have fun with this. Let's see how good of a YouTuber you really are. I'm gonna throw in all these little wrinkles. Ricardo Garcia, it's Halloween, that's why strange things happen. Yeah, so after this show, I'm going to be going to see one of my employees' houses. He's having like an open house, and it's going to be pretty cool because he's really into Halloween. That's like his #1 holiday. And he's done this huge decoration thing on his house. So he actually recruited the help of one of our other guys, Ben here, who loves to do 3D printing. And they 3D printed a giant a giant machete and a giant hockey mask for a giant skull to be like Jason. And they had this whole Friday the 13th themed decoration in their front yard, and complete with the Camp Crystal Lake sign, and a full-sized canoe with scared people, and Jason is coming out of the water, and it's this 20-foot tall Jason, because the machete might have been 6 feet long, so it's a huge display. And they do the inside of their house and all that stuff. So he's having an open house, so I'll be checking that out. They're making you work for the 1 million sub plaque. Yeah, I should take pictures while I'm there. I'll share the pictures on social. Yeah, so strangely, it looks like I'm not even going to bring up the internet anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that everything's all right. That's because that's always worked out in the past, right? Just assume that everything's going to be fine. Yeah, so this one wasn't even like a JSON thing that you just like buy and you inflate. I mean, the whole thing is like solid practical, and the thing was like I think just a big skeleton, and they 3D printed all the JSON elements onto this giant skeleton. It's pretty neat. Pretty neat. Okay, so let's actually have some reef aquarium questions. Imagine that on a reef aquarium show. Any real difference? So this is Jordan asking. Any real difference in care between branching and regular Cyphastria? Not really, I don't think. We don't do anything specifically different for that. Like, um, I've seen some people want to give branching Cyphastria more flow, but I'm not really too sure if that's necessary. In all the tanks that I've seen, you treat it kind of like um, an SPS, but you can have it in much, much lower lighting. Queen of Reef, hello. So Stephanie and her boyfriend David came and hung out with me a couple weeks ago. That was a lot of fun. And she should be studying for the bar exam. Sorry to ruin your weekend, Steph. Yeah, so if you guys don't know, Queen of Reef, she graduated from law school, and that is something that I did seemingly a million years ago. And I somehow luckily passed the bar, but I do remember like because she's in the process of studying for the bar, and I just remember just like what an awful experience that was. So I am terribly sorry that you have to go through that. Gross, the bar exam. It's like a 3 day law exam to get inducted, is that even the right word? Accepted into the local state bar. Yeah, it's no fun at all. And I like barely passed, so I mean my score was like decimal points above the bar. Yeah, great. Good times. It's truly an awful experience already having panic attacks. You know, the thing is, that is worth panicking over. That was definitely not an easy experience. And I know a lot of people that it takes them like a number of times to pass, which I hold nothing against anybody that has to take it like multiple times. I was just horrified by the idea for me of having to do all that studying again because it's like 4 months, 40 hours a week of studying just for this stupid test. And had I not passed it that first time, I can pretty much guarantee you that I wasn't going to try again. Michael Ross, I passed a bar but got drunk. So you know what's really funny? When I was in law school, I was joking with my classmates that we should just open up a drinking establishment and call it the bar, and we would just give out bad legal advice and serve drinks and give out bad legal advice. That's like the concept. That's questionable legality, and that's probably like a legal ethics violation. It's probably going to get you disbarred. The Zen Ginger, hello all. Hope we're all well today. Thank you. We started off a little rough today. This live stream got off to like a whole bunch of hiccups. Speaking of, I should probably share this particular stream onto the correct thing, but at this point I don't know if I'm gonna mess with it, you guys. It's a little messed up. It's a little messed up. If we get to like a lull, I'll mess with it then, but I don't really feel like messing with the YouTube back end right now. Okay, economical reefer. Having difficulty keeping my pH stable. Using calc 8.0 to 8.3 swing. Not the worst thing in the world, really. You're in the correct ballpark, and you can get a swing from like 8.0 to 8.3 just by having humans in the house or opening windows. I mean, I think that is, you're probably fine. If you wanted to, I mean, at that point, you're basically talking about you could like mix in a few more house plants, that sort of stuff, or spending a little bit less time in your own home. I wouldn't try to aggressively fix it with anything like um, with literally anything. I mean, just relax. Now, if you're in one of the northern states and you're heading into winter, you might experience those numbers kind of descending as like your house gets a little bit more closed up. And if you're already not using calc, dosing calc in like the evening hours could help bring that up a little bit. But I would say that if you're consistently 8.0 to 8.3, that's kind of perfect. Is there a world record for quickest disbarment? No, but there's probably a world record for which ones should have been the quickest to get disbarred. There's some goofy lawyers out there. Let's see. Vasco, hello from Portugal. Can you please share your thoughts on the 4 templates from Coral Lab on the XR15 Blue? Unfortunately, I can't because I've literally haven't used any of them before. I've seen them on the thing, so we're talking about like the Ecotech Radeon lights. They come with these different lighting profiles. We end up just making our own every single time. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of experience on any one of them, not even one of them. So honestly, a lot of these lights at this point are good enough that they will all do pretty well. And a lot of this comes down to personal preference and what you're keeping in your tank. And barely even on that point about what you're keeping in your tank. I bet most things will do great under most of these lighting settings. Okay, Dave's Plantification. Hey, Than. Do you recommend dosing alkalinity / calcium all at once or over a longer period? I would personally do a longer period. Um, and what time of day would you recommend dosing 2-part? If you could, I would spread it out over the course of the entire day if it was up to me. Like when it comes to calcium and alkalinity, especially like when you're doing that 2-part, they want to react with each other. So if you could dose like a little bit of calcium, wait a couple hours, dose a little bit of alkalinity, wait a couple hours, calcium alkalinity to get you like through the entire day, and have those 2 dosings as separate as possible. That's probably going to give you the least amount of like risk of interaction. Sometimes people just dose it at the same time by hand in just different parts of the aquarium. You can do that as well. And literally some people were just like, I just have like a little squirt bottle of it and I just do like a couple pumps and that's it. And they're not even worried about any kind of like dosing regimen or anything like that. So you're already ahead of the game when it comes to putting it on a doser. But if you wanted just to really like dig down into like the nuance of it, you want to like separate the dosing in time. Eric, might be a little bit early. I apologize if I upset him, but do you know if they will continue to make videos for Reef Builders? I have no idea. I mean, Reef Builders is like, it's a fairly, I mean, I barely know anything about Reef Builders, to be perfectly honest. Like, a lot of what I learned about Reef Builders, I learned over a weekend while I was at Reef Builders. Um, I imagine that they will, but I don't know. I mean, obviously, Jake Adams was a pretty big deal as one of the co-founders. Or was he a co-founder of Reef Builders? I think that he and like his business partner Ryan came together, and I think that Ryan was like the blog person originally, and Jake was more the trade show person. But yeah, I don't remember the exact origin story. Yeah, but I mean, obviously that's a big deal loss. Gardner Steve, I know this is an extremely controversial subject, but where do you stand on the Vibrant fiasco? So, my experience with Vibrant is that it definitely works to kill algae. The original, I guess, marketing of it was that it's like some kind of beneficial bacteria that directly is consuming algae or something to that effect. And I guess that wasn't the case at all. It turns out that it's very likely just some off the shelf insecticide. And, or I'm sorry, not insecticide, herbicide. And yeah, go figure, a herbicide will probably kill algae in your tank. So I don't think that the issue is so much that did it do or not do what it said that it was going to do. I just think that if it is true that it is not a bacterial thing and it is in fact just this herbicide, there's probably some like a whole bunch of problems there with how they went about marketing that. So definitely not cool with that, and it would make me a little bit hesitant to trust the other products. But that's just me. Like, you definitely don't want to be like lying to consumers if that's indeed what happened. But yeah, I mean, I don't even, is there like new news? Because I haven't heard anything, or I haven't paid any attention to any of the more recent stuff, if there is any. Dylan Machine, $5 super chat. Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much, Dylan. What can cause alkalinity to rise higher than 12 and stay there with no dosing? A couple of things to consider. The first thing to consider is your testing. Um, Double and triple check to make sure that the test is actually giving you valid data. And I say that from experience lately because I kind of had an issue with possibly a false positive on something, and I was like pulling my hair out about a lot of stuff. And then when I tested the water sample with 5 other different tests, including 2 different ICPs, it's very likely that the initial test that I was freaking out about was just a bad test because literally nothing else was picking anything up. So if you are seeing like super high like values, make sure that other testing is also indicating super high values before you start doing anything. We did some stuff just in case this lone wolf test was in fact correct and everybody else was, was agreeing with their own lies, right? Um, but no, we definitely tried to handle this issue just in case that there was an issue, but the entire issue just might have been a bad test kit. All right, assuming that your 12 DKH is real, my big concern would be: are you using a salt that is intentionally high in alkalinity? Because some of the reef formulations, they go higher in magnesium, higher in calcium, and higher in alk, with like the expectation that your reef is going to deplete it quickly. So if you have an aquarium that is like chock full of tons of giant SPS colonies that are just going to drink in all this macronutrient up, yeah, you're going to need to have like a salt. You're going to benefit from a salt that has like these higher starting values. But if you just have like a couple of fish and like a leather coral, and you're using these salts that are intentionally high, as you do water changes and as you run the system, you're going to get like this build up. So in that sense, you might have just hit that perfect curve where you're overdoing it with your initial salt mix. And you already said, assuming that there's no dosing. So that is all I can think of is those two things. I guess the third thing, it could be your water source. It is entirely possible that your incoming water, if you're not using like RODI or whatever, could be high in some of those things. You could just get some chalky water. Okay, Will M, currently running 2 primes, 2 AI lights on a 36 by 18, was thinking of purchasing an XR30 Pro. Is it worth the investment? Probably not. I mean, I think that the 2 primes are pretty good. An XR30 Pro, pretty good. You could, unless you just like the Radeons more, and this is coming from somebody that is that uses a lot of Radeons. If you already have pretty good lights, going with other pretty good lights, I don't think it's going to make like a huge world of difference to you. Michael Ross, I like that bird of paradise. Is the SPS bird's nest hard to care for? No, not really. You just have to make sure that you don't blast it with light. Sometimes people struggle when they hit it with too much light initially. But it's a lot more forgiving than a lot of other things like acros and heck, even Montes. It's fairly easy, I would say. And make sure that it gets enough flow but doesn't get obliterated. You don't want to go too crazy with that. Okay, Rolly's Refrench. It's API, algae fix, rebottle, it increased in price, chemical analysis identical. Okay, so we're talking about going back to the whole, I even forget the name of the product, Vibrant thing. Yeah, it turns out that if you use an algicide, it absolutely does the thing, right? If you're using Vibrant without a problem, you were probably using it at a safe level, but curious to see more data still. Yeah, I think the problem wasn't that it didn't work. I think the problem was that, like, you said it was something else entirely, and that's not cool. Economical reefer, £4.49. Thank you very. Oh my gosh, it's like all the different currencies, right? £4 super chat. Thank you so much, Economical Reefer. Appreciate it. I have a pesticide license and everything I use is highly regulated enough to keep accurate records. Okay, well, there's that too. I mean, if there's like regulations on top of that are getting screwy, that's not cool. Let's see, Alex Suleweski. My tap water has around 4 to 5 DKH. That's a pretty hefty bump. I mean, it really depends on your source water, like I mentioned, because we have a well here, and we simply cannot use our well water. It has a TDS over 900, and if you mix into it, the next day it leaves like a heavy chalk residue on everything. Like all of that good stuff comes screaming out of solution. So you might have an issue with source water. Tech HR, how are Orphics compared to Radeons? I mean, you're talking about a light that is kind of just different in what it's trying to do. I mean, it's kind of a flat panel light rather than having like a cluster of pucks with optics. I haven't used its latest control system, but I think that the Ecotech control is a lot more intuitive than the Orphic control of the generation that I have. I think the newer Orphic might be easier to control. One would hope. But I think that that's kind of what separates Ecotech from a lot of different lighting companies, is that it tends to have a lot better software that gets updated more frequently to, like, get fixes done. Hello. My mom just like came into the studio. Did you need something? Yeah, I know. I had to like bail out of that live stream and start a new one because we had broadcast errors and stuff like that. So it's a different thing altogether. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So my mom wasn't able to find the stream. All right. Yes, we had some technical difficulties to start, and so this is not the original broadcast file thing. All right. Courtney, what are your favorite corals for the daylight spectrum? I actually made a video on that topic. The ones that I typically gravitate towards are like the ones that don't fluoresce. So it's going to be like things like leather corals. And obviously there are leather corals that do fluoresce, but I like those canary yellow, like Fiji leathers, those sarcophyton elegans. Those are really, really, really cool. But there's an entire video all about like corals that really, really look great in daylight lighting. David, hey fan, is there anything that can withstand a hammer coral sting that can place near it on the rockwork? Hammer corals typically don't have the most aggressive sting in the whole world, but I would try to work to give it some space because it's gonna grow. There's probably a bunch of things that could withstand it, but you also have to worry about whatever that other thing is stinging it right back. And whatever that other thing is, that might be, trouble time for your hammer. Let's see. Than, what's your opinion on artificial prefab reef escapes, tanks, and trains? I haven't used any. We've just kind of made our own here with Marco Rock. So unfortunately, I can't give you any firsthand experience on those. Kevin Smith, notice my jack-o'-lantern is growing long sweeper tentacles. Anyone have this happen? Yes. Sometimes they do that for us as well. It's not like a huge deal, but it's kind of indicative that there is like some hostile interaction going on, and you kind of have to just make sure that they don't, whatever it is, doesn't grow into each other at that point. A cockroach. Thoughts on the Kessil A360X compared to others such as Radeons? I've never really used Kessil so much on my aquariums. We use them at our like saw stations and stuff like that. I think it's a really well constructed light. I'm pretty sure that you're going to be getting the kind of performance that you're looking for your tank. I know that they're going to be a little bit more spotlighty, and since it's more of that that single point source light, you're going to get a lot more like glitter lines if you like that look. Whereas I think that the Radeons of this era are looking to be almost like a T5 looking effect. So it's just to kind of like have this really even blanket. Recognize, hey Than, have you ever used power compacts way back in the day? Yep. I was there for the start of power compacts. I was there for the end of power compacts. The entire time. Everybody's like saying hi, mom. And yes, the coffee press as a drinking cup. I used to do French press a lot. And one day I discovered like the espresso based drinks, and ever since I just could not get back into French press. So my old French press, so I sold my burr grinder and I took my French press, and this is how I drink water a lot now. Alex again, is red light more likely to grow algae than blue light? Maybe. So if you look at the absorption spectrums of the different types of chlorophyll, you'll notice that I believe quite a lot more of the red spectrum, right around 660 nanometers, is absorbed. So one would think that having more red spectrum would encourage more, energy getting transferred into the chlorophyll. So yeah, it's possible you might get a lot more algae that way. Digital soundscapes. How nice would it be if you could find a coral and name it after Jake, Jake Adams, to show our respect for all that he's done in the hobby? You know, that's not a bad idea at all. If like I know that he really liked the weird stuff that he had collected. So if there's ever a time where that palastrea that looks kind of like a stylophora ever makes it into like the reef aquarium trade, that would probably be my nomination to get named after Jake. Harkins, hello. Harkins, the countdown is on. We'll be hanging out on Friday, hopefully. I'm so looking forward to this trip. So, guys, not well. I was gonna say not this weekend, obviously. Next weekend, I'm going to be going to Las Vegas. I'm going to be seeing a couple people's home aquariums. I'm going to go see a show. Going to take in some good food. So I'm very much looking forward to that trip. I mean, it's basically like a travel day to get there, 2 days actually in Vegas, and a travel day back. But I've pretty much like filled up that schedule and looking forward to it. I'm going to be seeing like a Cirque du Soleil show. I booked like one super fancy dinner, and yeah, I think the rest of it is just going to be reef aquarium stuff. Alex G, are T5 still worth using these days? I'm using a T5 LED hybrid and kind of getting tired of the bulb replacements. I loved your T5 videos from a few years back. Thank you. So T5s work wonderfully. Like if you're looking for something that just works, T5s are great. But they every light has its downsides. T5s kind of, you have to put up with the heat, the bulb replacements, all that stuff. I still think that as far as your ability to shoot like video and images, nothing really beats T5. T5 is like wonderful compared to LED. LED is making some serious advancements. I mean, what is lighting all the corals that you see on the show, lighting my face, it's all LED now. So it can still be a flattering light, but compared to the T5, T5 still has like a lot of big time advantages. It's getting better though. Dave's plantification once again. What are some good high light loving corals to add to an SPS dominated tank? I'm assuming that you're not looking for more SPS. One thing that might be interesting would be not a coral at all, but perhaps a clam. I haven't kept clams in forever, but they love a ton of light. Raleigh's Reef Ranch. Really enjoyed your tribute to Jake the other day. I live 5 minutes away from the studio and regret never meeting him in person. Thanks for that. Yeah, it's a crazy, like, shocking loss. I mean, when I got the news, I think I just exclaimed like what? I mean, like the idea that he was just here. We were just talking, not here like in at Tidal Gardens, but like, we were just talking about having him come visit. Um, like he had invited me to that same Bali trip, and that's like I mentioned in that video, like that's the sort of thing that I would have said yes to, but I didn't because I had traveled for 3 weekends in a row, and I didn't want to cap that off with another like week long trip. I mean, it took me like a long time just to like recover from all the travel that I did do, and then to stack like a big international trip at the very tail end of that, and then come back and then go to like Las Vegas and stuff like that. It wasn't going to ever fit in the schedule. So that was like a total like wild thing. And yeah, like you can never expect tragic losses like that, but it's amazing like how influential like he and Reef Builders and like the Reef Stock trade show were, because there's a lot of folks that they have like a complicated relationship with Jake, and I was definitely on that train as well. I mean, we weren't friendly for a really long time, you guys. And I didn't want to make it sound like in my video that like we've been like, best bros forever. We weren't. We were just starting a friendship. And that is like the kind of regretful thing for me, because I could see like there's so much overlap into what we wanted to do that we could have done some really cool stuff together. And like all the time that we spent like not really talking, like we weren't ready to have those conversations anyway. But yeah, it is really interesting to see like how many people were very very close to Jake, and so like my thoughts go out to them because they had a much stronger friendship with him for much longer than me. So it's certainly like a tough thing for folks in the industry that knew him. I think using Jake's name for a scientific name would be really appropriate. That's a great point too. B. That's a really good point, especially since like he is so uninterested in like the trade name stuff. So, which is kind of funny because like he named his different aquariums after after like Facebook groups that were popular. So he had like a tank that was full of mushrooms called the Shroom Room, which is like a Facebook group. And there was like a Chalice Palace and stuff like that. So I don't think that he was completely dismissive of like kind of like the colorful names, but at the same time, like yeah, he was really big on the scientific names, and I think that would be like an interesting thing to like have an actual scientific coral name, genus and species for Jake. So somebody out there that's actually a coral taxonomist needs to discover something novel, do whatever taxonomists do these days, get that thing genetically tested and have it differentiated and be like, this is a such and such. That'd be cool. Than, if anything, what can you tell us about the snake polyps that he collected? Nothing. Well, okay, so the snake polyp that I thought was super cool was one that had like red spots. Super, super cool. Snake polyps in general are nocturnal, and they are kind of like Tabastria in that sense. So when they come out and extend at night, they look really cool, and then you can like feed them and stuff. But I'm just never around here like that late at night. But one time I remember I was working late, and I knew that I was like working late because I looked over and all the snake polyps were like extended, and they have a really cool terminal polyp that comes out. But you never see that during the day. It's a nighttime only thing. Zachary Buckland, you seem to have all the equipment a reefer could dream about. Any equipment that you're still looking to add? Yeah, sure. Um, so we always experiment with stuff, whether it's a new pump, a new light, or something like that. I mean, we have our baseline, right? So we use Radeons, for example, throughout our facility. Shout out to Shout out to Ecotech, sponsor of Tidal Gardens. And we use that a lot because A, we're happy with the performance, but B, a lot of people in the hobby have these lights also. But we do experiment. I mean, we have some Orphix here and there. We have some like cheap Amazon T5 fixtures here and there. We have some expensive German T5 fixtures from ATI. We recently, B will appreciate this. We've got a couple of GNC lighting fixtures, which Jake also had in his facility. But he described GNC lights as the best hardware with the worst software imaginable. So if GNC could like iron out those wrinkles, they might be onto something. But it's a cool light because I think it has like 500 LEDs on it, each individually with optics, no moving parts because the top of it is like a giant heat sink. The thing seems to weigh 20 something pounds. I mean, it's a monster, and we just haven't used it yet because we have to redo a lot of our lighting infrastructure in the greenhouse. So we have to build like an entire like canopy for this and everything like that, just because of how we suspend stuff from the ceiling. But I'm interested in giving that a try. Abiz came out with their AFC 150s, which is like the big power head that can deliver flow, you know, like 20 feet. And I'm working with them to get a demo unit. But even aside from that, I'm going to be purchasing one from CoralView. Also, thank you, sponsor of Tidal Gardens. But yeah, we're going to be getting a couple of those. You know, one directly from the company, hopefully, fingers crossed. Thanks, Alex. And one like we'll just purchase outright, because there is like some there when it comes to giving any kind of input on devices. I actually feel more comfortable paying for stuff, even if, you know, obviously it's like it's going to be like some wholesale rate or a demo rate or something like that, right? But I feel a little bit more comfortable doing that. And even when like the company says you can say whatever you want about this, right? A lot of companies like we just want it in your hands. You can say whatever you like. I feel more at ease about saying something, even though we don't really do a lot of hardware reviews here. It's liberating in that sense. So those are like the two big things that I'm interested to try out: the GNC light as well as the Abiz AFC 150s. Trying to think if there's any other devices that we're going to try out. We recently, because like Abiz is like my favorite all-time lighting. Abiz is my all-time favorite pump. But speaking of Jake again, so at the studio, like when I told him that, you know, yeah, I want to like switch out a lot more of my pumps over to Abiz, but I have to do it little by little because Abiz are very, very expensive. And he's just like in shock at the price tags that, you know, because I mean, to outfit a large facility with that level of pump, it's shockingly pricey. So he said, you know, have you ever considered Deltec? And honest to God, Deltec is a company that's been around forever. It's a German brand. Ironically, I had just met the CEO of Deltec at MACNA in Milwaukee. I had met Jeff Turner previous to that. Jeff Turner, he does like a whole bunch of like high-end installs and stuff like that all over the country. He's from Florida, and he's like the US distributor of Deltec. And it never occurred to me to try Deltec. For whatever reason, it's a brand that's been around forever, is known to be high-end, but hasn't really been in like the US zeitgeist of aquarium manufacturers. And he said, consider this pump that Deltec makes, because it is very high quality. It's kind of Abiz-like, but not nearly at that price point. Still super expensive. Don't get it twisted. It is cheaper than Abiz, but that's not saying much. Abiz is very expensive. So I talked to the Deltec folks, and we got two pumps, and we just literally a couple days ago installed these Deltec pumps, and turns out they are pretty good. They are pretty good. So yeah, we always are interested in trying out high-end equipment. Love that stuff. Let's see. Rolly's Reef Ranch would be awesome to auction off frags of his immortal toward as a fundraiser to his family. It could live on in people's tanks in his remembrance. That would be cool. I don't think I have that coral. And I already donated to his cause. I was thinking about just giving money directly to Windsor, because I know her personally, but I don't know how the GoFundMe stuff works. Is it still a thing where if they don't hit the milestone goal, it doesn't happen or something like that? So just in case, I just did the donation through the GoFundMe, if it would help it actually reach the milestone. If that makes any sense. I'm literally very new to GoFundMe. I don't know how it works. By the way, there is a GoFundMe if you want to help support Windsor, who is like Jake's wife, because she is having a kid. I think that she's like 9 weeks pregnant or something like that. So I'm sure that the family would very much appreciate that. So I had to throw that out there. Let's see. Hi, Tidal. I need some help with the advice for a first-time owner of a sun coral. This will be my first time buying one. I can simplify it for you remarkably easily. You have to feed it. You have to feed it a lot of food, and make sure that when it's eating, it doesn't get harassed by other fish, by any fish in general. I've noticed that, like, obviously feeding it at night is good because it likes to come out at night. They can be trained to come out during the day, but it's feeding. You cannot reiterate that enough. You will just want to feed it as much as you can for as often as you can during the day. High desert reefing. Will adding decorative macroalgae to my display reduce nutrients? Yes. You'll have to harvest the macroalgae out to function as nutrient removal, but yes, it will. Aqua Splendor, hi Than, have you seen a Palastrea anywhere before? Not for sale, right? Honestly, I didn't even know it was a thing until Jake made such a big deal of it. But he is so into the weeds when it comes to that sort of stuff. 99% of anybody that sees that coral would think that it's just a stylo, but it is not. But who knows? Maybe it'll make its way into the general population. But yeah, I've never seen it before outside of like when he brought it up. Michael Patterson. Let's see. My LFS agreed to take Coral Rock. I was hoping to use the space for your Platycakes Platygyra. Any suggestions to keep it circular? No, not so much. I think that in general, it's going to grow circular if you just let it. I don't think it's going to take on any other growth form, to be perfectly honest. Won't take too much effort. Tom Gionet. Retail on my calcium RX feed pump was like $2,500 when new. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that was a Deltec. Yeah, Deltec stuff is expensive. It's German as well. I am interested in trying their calcium reactor. The feed pump was $2,500. Dang. There's some crazy pumps out there. So Abyss isn't that insane for what it is. It's not insane at all for what it is. It's just expensive. I love Abyss. Like, doesn't Abyss use titanium impellers? Yeah, they do. Like, I know that they were at one time consulting for a company or something like that. I'm gonna mess up the anecdote, okay? But I'll get to the punchline as fast as I can. Somebody wanted to make a cheaper version of an Abyss. So they got the parts list for an Abyss. They priced it all out, and they're like, we could never build this pump for the price point that we want to sell our pump at to try to mimic an Abyss. So what they did was they went to China and like got together like some pump stuff to make their pump, right? But they really liked the orange cable that Abyss used. So they went to the manufacturer of just that orange cable, right? Because they really liked that cable. I think that the story goes, the material cost of this pump, that orange cable was 33% of the cost of that pump. So that gives you an idea of just how materially expensive an Abyss is. They use insanely good stuff when building their pumps. B, where did you put the Deltec pumps? Okay, speaking of Abyss, okay. Kind of a long story. On one of our tanks, we had put, we originally had 2 Vectra L2 closed loops, okay? For fun, we wanted to take off those 2 Vectra L2s, put in a single Abyss A200, and so now that we have 4 holes in the tank, what used to be intake, output, we wanted to do 1 intake, 3 outputs off of an Abyss. Turns out that was a horrible idea because you got more flow doing 2 Ecotech pumps, input, output, rather than 1 Abyss, input, output, if that makes sense. So we took out the Abyss A200, and then we replaced that, going back to the 2 pump thing, with 2 Deltecs, input, output. Hopefully you all followed along with that story. So long story short, we went from Ecotech to Abyss to Deltec on that tank. And of those 3 configurations, the Deltec is working at the best. Now, had we used 2 Abyss, maybe that would have been the best, but we just had 1 Abyss just to see if can we get the flow we need off of 1 pump rather than 2. No, the answer was no. Can you give tips on owning a sun coral in a mixed reef? Same thing. It is just to feed a lot. Just a lot. Maybe at least 3 times a day. That'll help you out. Let's see. Can you go over what exactly a lithophyllin corals? So a lithophyllin, it's kind of lumped in with chalices. So it'll be a very, very similar care to like your standard LPS coral. They can be fed pretty easily. They can be fragged pretty easily. It's a very middle of the road chalice coral. Treat it like that. Hey Than, question for you. The Acropora in our classroom reef is not looking amazing. What a shock. But our Montipora is all washed out. Any guesses as to why? I heard that potassium might be a factor. Okay, so Acropora dying or not looking good, that is the Acropora experience. Hate to break it to you, Acropora just are always angry at the slightest of things, right? Now, if Montes are looking washed out as well, you might want to send off an ICP or 2, because what could be the issue is something that we're kind of possibly struggling with ourselves, is trace elements. Sometimes people experience like a particular thing like bottoming out, like a particular value bottoming out. And when that happens, you can get like really pale looking corals and stuff like that. It could also just be like a lack of nitrate or phosphate, a lack of nitrate and phosphate. So if you're running like super clean water, like scary clean, you might have a situation where those values have simply bottomed out, and when you reintroduce that, like direct addition of nitrate and phosphate, things might go much better for you. Test like crazy, Classroom Reef. It's the first time I've ever seen one. Don't know. So he's talking about the lithophilin. Don't know if it's a pavona or a lithophilin. They do kind of look similar, but they're not at all. Like a pavona is very thin, whereas a lithophilin is like a very dense chalice. Yeah, I've machined a lot of titanium. It is not a fun material to work with, and costs reflect that. I have heard that titanium is no joke. Um, it's a really, really, really cool material, and I think that if I had the choice, more of my stuff would be made of titanium. Um, I I really am looking forward to getting like titanium, like the industrial pumps that we use for our like water systems and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm gonna go ahead and see if we can price out some titanium options, even though they might be scary expensive, because I know the type of wear and tear that salt puts on these things. So we shall see. I just got a spam call. What a shock. Okay. Diacanthus Reef, looking particularly dapper today, Dan. Thank you. This is like my new bow tie I received. This is like my all-time favorite now. Acropore is amazing. Montipore is having the issue. The only thing that I can think of in that situation might be the acro's looking great because it's in a light environment that it really likes. Because if is it like super bright? Because Monty's might not quite like the level of intensity that acros are getting. That's a possibility. Yeah, Tom says that ICP tests are barely more expensive than a frag and worth their weight in gold. Now they can be. So when it comes to ICP, your mileage may vary. I wish I could give better input on that. I just know that depending on how talented the operator of the machine is and how regularly that machine is calibrated and stuff, because hate to break it to you guys, but these things are just not hobby things. Like Andrew Sandler, the guy in New York with like the really really big aquarium, he was going through so many ICP tests. He's like, I should just get an ICP, have it here, so when I want to do, you know, all these different ICP tests every day, I can just do it myself. And it turns out you can't really do that. Like they're serious business, touchy, finicky devices. And if you do any little bit wrong, if the calibration wasn't done properly, all this stuff, you're just gonna get bad results. And I know, for example, that depending on how certain samples are handled, you might get like zero reading on something like copper, because like copper is highly sticky reactive, and so you might have copper in your sample, but if the machine is using a silicone hose to draw water from the sample to get to the machine, okay, the machine can detect copper, but just in the transfer of liquid through a silicone tube, the silicone tube will absorb all the copper that was in that sample before the machine is able to do its analysis. So that is a handling issue, right? That is not a downfall of ICP as a technology. It is simply technique. And there's like all these little pitfalls that happen. And so you literally might have copper in your water and it will not show up on an ICP because the test was done technically improperly. There's tons of stuff like that that could happen. it's a highly, like I said, finicky and volatile tech. And I mean, so would you use it as a gospel? You probably shouldn't. Um, so again, like verify against the other ICPs. Verify against the same ICP twice. You might be interested to see like how different if you just take two water samples and send them both to the same ICP company on the same day to see how different the results are. Abraham Estrada. Funny, I'm literally using an ICP right now. I'm sure that is a very fun experience for you. I mean, like I just remember like using all the analytical chemistry stuff, back in like chemistry lab way back when I was in college. Yeah, that stuff is finicky. It's like different students would get very different results. I hear something. Okay. Couldn't place the sound. It's like it sounds like rain, and I'm looking outside, and it is like bright, sunny, not a cloud in the sky. I'm like, the heck am I hearing? Oh man. Okay. How do you feel about the new Hannah Marine Monitor for salinity pH? It does temperature of the water. Have not used it. Have not used it at all. Um, Hopefully it's good. So right now I'm at the point where I need whatever testing device I'm using. I need it to give me results that I can trust. And the easier it is to get to that point, the happier I'm going to be. For example, we collect rainwater here. And in order to use rainwater to then create RO water, we have to do a stage of chlorination to disinfect it. Because whatever bacteria is growing in an underground cistern will also eat an RO membrane. So you need to kill off all that bacteria before it gets to your RO. So we have to closely monitor our chlorine level, and we have severely messed that step up before to the point where we had absolutely had chlorinated water in our systems, like saltwater systems, chlorinated water. It was bad. We had problems, turns out. Super scary stuff. So now see, it's easy to mess up because we have to mix our own chlorine, and also we have to change the chlorine level depending on the season because of the different levels of bacteria depending on the season from the cistern. Long story short, we need to test for chlorine in our water sample as the RO is running and doing its thing. So we tested at 3 different places. Like we tested right when it's coming out of the chlorine chamber, right when it's coming out of the dechlorination carbon stage, and then we tested right as it's coming out of the RO. So theoretically, we should have like all these different numbers coming in and out. So we were using basically like a homeowner grade level test kit, and it was like, horseshoes and hand grenades, right? Close enough. But I had the option of buying like a super accurate EPA rated one, and then that thing literally costs like $800. Cost, guys, cost. Like the company that I work with my RO, they're like, we do so much business that like they would sell it to me for whatever they're getting charged. And I said, yes, absolutely. Because I could get away with doing like the homeowner one. I could probably get away with doing like the one for pools and stuff. But I wanted like the tech that would give me the results that I could absolutely bang on trust. So I went with this thing. And I think a lot of like the stuff that's in the aquarium industry tends to be at a hobbyist price point. And that's kind of like why I'm like leaning more towards like some of like the more hardcore stuff, because when you have like a lot riding on these systems, you can't be messing around with like close-ish enough-ish. And so that's why we're like evaluating ICP companies. Even it's like, okay, we want to make sure that like you guys are giving us like good consistent results that we can believe. What was the sound? I think it was our water system downstairs. Somebody was topping off a tank. It sounds like a water leak. The funny thing is, like, water leaks here, they happen all the time, but they don't happen like so aggressively that it's like a big deal for us. Like a bulkhead is leaking. Chances are we can wait and it'll just seal itself up. But you know, our bulkheads sometimes loosen up and we have to like go back and tighten them all up. Let's see. Okay. How do you get your zoanthus to grow? I feel like you get frags, they don't grow fast. Water too clean? It could be. I used to have dirty water and they grew quick. Yeah, zoanthids like dirtier water, but they don't like to be dirty themselves. So you have to keep the polyps clean, so like a good flow and stuff like that. Don't let algae grow on them. Don't let bugs around them. So by the way, we recently ran interceptor on some of our tanks, and we did it because like we noticed a couple like little, you know, like little micro bugs showing up on like some things, right? And we're like, that's probably not great. So we just nuked the entire system. And other things that we were not even expecting had an issue, like ever, like doubled in size. Like we never saw them have any problem up to that point. Like bubble tip anemones. That's not even something that typically gets bugs ever, right? They literally doubled in size. And it was like, oh, huh. So every now and again, I think that what we're going to end up doing is just like periodically going through a stage of like, you know, just nuking stuff and breaking down and restarting tanks just to like, you know, start off with blank slate, because long-term aquaculture is like a very high risk thing for just having stuff like start up. But going back to your zoanthid thing, keep them clean, but give them plenty of nutrient in the water. Estonian reefer. If you lived close to the sea, would you consider running your systems off of natural seawater? I'd consider it, but that is way more involved than you might think. Like the places that do that, like for example the Waikiki Aquarium in Hawaii, they put in way more effort than you do making RO, making salt, all that stuff. Okay, they put in way more effort to use that water for their systems. I mean, they give it like chlorine baths, they filter the hell out of it, then it goes to their system. So there is absolutely a wastewater treatment plant solution that they're doing before they use that water. The idea that you're just gonna like pump that into your tank directly, that ain't happening. That's like madness. Like, don't do that. ATF. What's the difference between Nephthia, Sinularia, and Kenya tree? It would be very hard for me to verbalize, but when you are around them enough, you can see the differences. It's like the difference between Passillopora and a Stylophora, and now a Palastrea. Like, there are these real subtle differences, and you sound like a crazy person when you try to describe how different they are, because they're super similar looking. But if you showed me all three of those corals, if you show all three of those corals side by side, I can 100% tell you this is this, this is this, this and this, but very similar. Raven, do you think spawning corals is a viable and profitable method of aquaculture? Would you ever consider doing it yourself? Do you think it is the future of the hobby? Do I think it is a profitable method of aquaculture? Right now, it is literally not. Would you ever consider doing it yourself? Yes. There are some major challenges. Major challenges that I'm not sure if I'm all set to take. Mainly, it is the manpower needed to do it correctly. Facility-wise, I could probably do it. But it would be like, is it an intention thing that I could do it in practice? That might be more challenging. Do you think it is the future of the hobby? I do. I think that in the future, you can expect less and less availability of wild stuff. And I think that propagation can only take you so far. For certain things that you simply cannot propagate, things like acanthophilia and like lobophilia, stuff like that. I mean, you can propagate a lobo, but can you though? Uh, I do think that coral spawning could be very, very good. Recognize. What salt do we use? We use reef crystals. Um, I am under no illusions that it is the best salt. It is the most convenient salt for a price I am okay with. I've also considered trying Accuracy, which is Julian Sprung's salt. My only worry there is availability on demand. It is a much lower volume production, and it's kind of boutique in the sense that I think Julian is literally making it by hand himself or something. And that is really cool. At the same time, it's really freaking me out because that screams like it might not be available when I need it. So, do I think that it could be a better product? It definitely could be a better product. There might be a lot of better products, in fact. But for me, it is the consistency and availability at a price point I can stomach. I live right by the ocean. This is the Classroom Reef. Thought about using natural seawater. However, there's a lot of oil companies that have docks in the bay. I wouldn't be surprised if you have three-eyed fish. Yeah, a lot of places. I mean, even when you are doing the whole like, let's get the water from the ocean, a lot of those places are getting it from like 2 miles offshore. Like it's not the beach. Let's just say. So Jay, could a large amount of amphipods slow zoa growth? Yes, yes they can. One of the things that I've actually seen a benefit from, this sounds awful, is when we did run Interceptor and a lot of amphipods died. Um, Turns out a lot of corals did better. Totally anecdotal. Not that you're going to keep amphipods away forever, they're going to come back, but, you know, corals seem to like it. Let's see. Hmm. Atkins Nature Aquariums. How can I raise nitrates and phosphates in a 10-month-old 18-month-old 10-gallon tank? Um, Still running at zeros for months now. So, like with everybody, I would recommend double checking your test kits. Try to use different brands of test kits to make sure that you are actually seeing zeros. And oh, I also feed frozen and refroids 2 times a week, but you're feeding nori, flake, and aminos daily. Um, you could always feed a little bit more. I mean, that's always like the easy answer. But I typically wouldn't try to hunt down figures too much. And there are ways to direct inject like nitrate and phosphate. It's like, what is it? What am I thinking of, you guys? You like you can literally um, directly add nitrate phosphate to your tank, like potassium nitrate, something like that. B, several years ago, I wasn't having issues with zoas. I had no clue. I had a crazy amount of Asterina starfish until I came down one night. There were thousands, and they weren't eating them. But all the starfish crawling on them was certainly damaging them. Nighttime checks are always a good idea. There you go. Yeah, I mean, turns out things don't like to be touched. Ashton, can I run a reef without testing anything except salinity? Um, yeah, You probably can. So here's the thing about like, can you do something? You can do a lot of things if you're willing. So sometimes people ask, like, can you do this thing without a skimmer? Yes. Can you do stuff without water changes? Yeah. Sometimes the answer to how to do those things is so much worse than the thing that you're trying to avoid. Like to do a tank without water changes, to try to like replicate the benefits of doing water changes in a system without water changes would suck. People do it. I would never recommend it. I'd never in a million years recommend that. So can you run a reef without testing anything except salinity? You know what I immediately think of is I would set up a continuous water change system. And if you just manage the salinity, that system is going to be great. You don't have to do water changes because it's happening automatically. You don't have to run protein skimmers. You don't have to do a lot of stuff because you're constantly providing newly mixed salt water to the system. And yeah, and if your salinity is doing great, it's bang on every single time, that system is going to work out for you, especially if you're doing that transfer aggressively. So like a 30% continuous water change, it's gonna be a real nice system. Did you used to use some random salt nobody's ever heard of before? Yes, Tom, I did. I used Omega C. Then they got acquired by the same company that does reef crystals and instant ocean. So they got purchased because Omega was known for their like fresh Alaskan caught seafood, and that was like the product that I'm trying to think of like the conglomerate that owns it all. I can't think of it. But so like the Reef Crystals company, they were interested in the food part of Omega's business, not the salt part, because nobody uses their salt. It was only me because they were kind of local to me. So the first thing that they did after the acquisition was they did away with the salt. So I'm like, okay, so I no longer have the salt availability. What's readily available? Reef crystals. So that's the story there. Okay. Bert, I've been using reef crystals for over 25 years and very large SPS colonies, no issues. Okay. I used to use reef crystals about 20 something years ago, and I switched off of reef crystals because at the time, in order to get reef crystals, like wholesale, you had to be able to accept the delivery in a full-size semi, and my driveway cannot accept a full-size semi. So I found this Omega place because they were willing to ship it on a short truck with a lift gate. Very important for me. So I literally chose my salt based on the ability to get it onto my site in small quantities. Small meaning 1 to 2 pallets. So now that I'm back on reef crystals, I still don't have the ability to take a full-size semi, but a company that is local brings in pallets, and they are willing to make like small deliveries more frequently to us. So there's that. Again, comes down to convenience. A lot of it. Journey into the reef. Dan, I purchased my first corals from you folks on Friday. So glad to be a customer. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I need it. We got bills to pay. Got big bills. It's all good though. Like we're having a good old time here. Tom. So Decantus Reef says, check out Jamie Craggs' articles and video presentations if you haven't already. Yeah, so Jamie Craggs is from the UK. He is a pioneer in like the research that goes into like coral spawning. I've talked with him for hours about this. Like, is this something I want to do? Is this something I want to do? He's like, you'll be fine. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be fine. I don't think that that's the last thing I'm gonna be if I try to do this. I want to make sure I do it right. So one of these days, I'd like to fly him out from the UK to here, show him Tidal Gardens. Again, see if I can talk myself into trying something like this with him present. Maybe we can even do like a live stream. We'll definitely make videos because I have so many questions. I'm sure you guys have many questions about what goes into coral spawning, and a lot of my questions, because he is obviously researcher, he does things at a research level, but all of my questions are like commercialization questions. It's like, what is the next step? How do you go from the lab to commercial aquaculture to make this a viable thing? And these are things that he hasn't had to tackle, but he would have a perspective on it just because he has done this activity very successfully now for years. So anyway, that's Jamie, real cool guy. Queen Anne's Reef, just wanted to say hello. First time checking out your live stream. Thank you, welcome. We had a rough start to this stream. So for those guys that are coming in late, we had some technical gremlins. So this is like the backup stream. And I have to remind myself to change the link that's on my website because it's not pointing to this stream. Yikes. Tom says, I am Twitter mutuals with Jamie. Yeah. Twitter, that is a thing that is not used by this industry. The social network of choice for the reef aquarium industry is the Facebook. Possibly my least favorite social network. But yeah, for whatever reason, the aquarium industry, it's all about the Facebook. And yes, I'm calling it the Facebook to be facetious. Omega C was the old salt brand? Yes, Tom. 30% over what time period? I was thinking twice a week, Ernie. Atkins Nature Aquariums. I have powder salts of potassium nitrate, monopotassium phosphate that I used to make fertilizer for my freshwater. Can I use it? Dude, I have no idea. No. Look this stuff up before you start dosing this stuff into your tank. I have personally never done it because I've always have some detectable levels of nitrate and phosphate in my systems. I just know that there are hobbyists that are running like zeros in their tanks, and when they started to add nitrate and phosphate directly, stuff went crazy happy. K Dancer, do you have any videos on clams? I do. It's super old, and honestly, that was the last time I've had clams. I have historically not been great with clams. There's a lot of having clams as a hobbyist is really different than having clams at a place that sells clams. So I haven't really nailed down like a great technique to keep them around here. I'm still dabbling with the idea of doing it, and I've talked to John at Clam Mania, and it's in the process, I guess. It's certainly a possibility for later. He knows quite a lot about clams, and I'd like to give it a try, but there are some complications on the commercial selling side of things, not so much like the hobbyist keeping of them. B says, I would totally spawn corals for you. You would have to move to Ohio, B. That ain't happening. Queen Answer, did a behind the scenes tour of the Atlanta Aquarium. I've never been, I want to go. They use Instant Ocean in all their systems. A lot of aquariums do. So like that's the thing about availability. Like Instant Ocean, if I had to guess, is like 90% of the entire salt industry. Everybody else is fighting for 10%. When you look at like hardcore volume of salt that they make, they have accounts like the Georgia Aquarium that they have like a 2 million gallon aquarium. All these other salt brands, I bet, don't sell 2 million gallons worth of salt a year. Yeah, it's insane. So again, that's kind of why I went with the reef crystals. It's like, you know what? I'm probably going to be able to get reef crystals whenever I want. Jason Mackley, man, you're amazing. Thank you. I don't know how true that is anymore, but I am one step closer to amazement. I got my silver play button. That's what this is, right? This is the silver play button. Yeah, the 100,000 subs. Thank you guys for following along on my little internet journey. I'm officially a YouTuber now. I can say that I actually do YouTube. Tom's like, I hate Facebook. I would probably not have a Facebook account if I didn't own this company. Let's see. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok is growing. Yeah, I could see that. I think Instagram is shrinking. I think that like Instagram might be getting like gobbled up a lot by TikTok. Jackson Mackley, I work at Aquatic Arts in Colorado. I saw your post with Jake, and I wish I was working that day. Yeah, he only took me to one store, and it was Aquatic Arts. Yeah, very cool store. You guys should be proud of the good job you guys are doing. And P's like, I am totally moving. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. You're totally, definitely not moving to Ohio. Okay. Do you still have the Harlan gun? Oh, I was like, I was talking to somebody else. 146 people were killed in a Halloween event crush in Korea. Not cool. That's surprising. Like, Korea usually has it more together than that. Angel Ramos was watching on TV and had to get on my phone to congratulate you. Thanks for all the videos and inspiration. Thank you, Angel or Angel. TikTok should be banned. So I was hanging out with some friends in Michigan, and so if you guys are following me on Instagram, I had posted a picture of like a restaurant that we went to that was like a vampire themed restaurant. It's kind of cool. But we were talking about like at some point like cybersecurity, and a cybersecurity expert said was going through all the different social networks, and he's like, when it got to TikTok, he said just delete this app from your phone immediately, because it's like all your data is going straight to China or something. It is probably a good thing that I'm such a geezer that I don't know how to use TikTok very well. Having said that, it is still on my phone. Having said that, again, there's nothing interesting on my phone. Like, I don't even have my phone with me. I don't think. Like, legit, I don't even know where my phone is. Doesn't matter. So you're spying on the inside of a dark bathroom or something. Good job, China. Yeah, like spying on me would be a shockingly boring experience. I gotta tell you. It's like, I don't think that you're gonna get a whole lot of really, really, really good informational stuff. And also, I don't think that I am very similar to a lot of other people's anything. Like, you're just gonna get bad data from me. Like, you're gonna get like really weird artisan bow tie stuff, and you're gonna get like vampire restaurant stuff, and my friends and I, we spent an afternoon like trying out expensive mattresses at a boutique in Michigan because we heard that Drake bought a $500,000 bed once, and that boutique happened to be there. So like, I wonder what a $500,000 bed feels like. Yeah, real useful data there, China. Honestly, geodata is more important. Yeah, it's in Detroit. Have fun with that, China. Okay, Than, I know this is a good question. He's calling a shot. Are you wearing pants or just bow tie and shirt for the cam? I am wearing custom tailored trousers. Thank you very much. I'm always complete. Always have my stuff together. Not always. I'm kidding. Jordan M, I'm just over phones. Phones suck. Yes and no. I mean, like growing up in the 80s, if you pulled out an iPhone, you'd be burned at the stake for witchcraft. It's so impressive. Aqua Splendor. I used Portland cement 20 years ago to build rock. Now I wonder what's the best for curing air, water, salt water, or dry water. I'm spraying my rock like it was plants. Honestly, I don't know. People are using a lot of super glue and accelerant. Wonder if you like me at my Zoom meetings, shirt, tie, and underwear. So I basically have two speeds. I have like this look, and I have pajamas, and there's not a whole lot in between. So if you're seeing one look, it's probably the entire look. If you're seeing the other look, it's probably that entire look. And so there's plenty of days here at the office where I literally like roll out of bed and just show up to the office. So yeah, this isn't an all the time thing, but yeah, it's like I've got two gears. K Dancer, I just wanted to say thank you for all your efforts into your job. I appreciate that. Could always work a little harder because I typically don't. I really love your videos and enthusiasm in the hobby. Your videos are my favorite and helps me learn so much about the hobby. Well, thank you very much, Kate Dancer. Tucked in shirt with no belt. Journey into the reef. Okay, so this is doing the deep dive into men's fashion. Okay, belts. If you're talking like the hardcore, like classic men's fashion dudes, nobody wears belts. They're like, do not ever wear a belt. The best thing you can do right this second is to throw away all your belts. And there's a reason for that. It's that the belt visually cuts your body in half, and oftentimes like it does it in an asymmetrical, unflattering way. Ideally, what you would have is side adjusters on your custom trousers, and that way you can like tighten at the hip. If you want to go like even more advanced than that, a lot of people like to have slightly wider waist and go with suspenders, because that is a lot more it's a lot more comfortable when it comes to like sitting down for like dinners and stuff like that, because it's not like sitting there pinched on your hips so much. But suspenders for me is a little bit not my favorite thing in the whole wide world, but that is like a trend that is coming back in. It's like the practicality of slightly looser pants and suspenders for comfort is a thing, and you don't have to like worry about ever like pulling up your pants or anything. They always hang at the right level that also just barely touches the top of your shoes. It works. But belts, I think that for the hardcore serious like style guys, they would never wear a belt. That was an aside, wasn't it, you guys? And so what was funny was like Jake actually asked me like a couple of like really personal questions, right? While I was visiting him, but one of the questions was like, is this just like a shtick, And he's like, why do you dress up? And this is the truth. I'll let you guys know. Okay. I actually love dressing up. I love diving into like historic men's fashion and stuff like that. I love classic men's styling. I think it's like super fun. Like I would say that this is one of the few hobbies that I actually have. I don't consider reef aquarium stuff my true hobby anymore, because when you start to like hire people to do your hobby, you're probably not in the hobby anymore at all. It's taken on a life of its own. So this is still one of my passions that has no like expectations of commercialization or anything. Like I have like enough knowledge and enough like stuff that I could do a men's style channel on its own, but it's at that point it's like, again, is it going to become something that I do for money and it's no longer a dumb hobby? Because like there is a beauty and purity just to do dumb stuff because you enjoy it. And that is the entire thing as to like why I do all this like dressing up and stuff. I like shopping for like the weird, obscure, like artisan, tailored stuff. And when Jake heard that, he was just like, "That's like the best answer you could have ever given," because it's like it's cool because it's inherently like useless and dumb. Like that's what makes it cool. So yeah, I think that most hobbies should be that way. It shouldn't have like a lot of like financial expectation, because once you start to like make freaking coral farms and stuff, it's a very different experience. Oh. Okay, Jay, how soon after a cycle should you do a water change? I'm one of those guys that like I would say that water changes don't derail the cycle at all. Like you're trying to develop a bacterial load, don't even worry about the water changes. Just do them. Like they're fine. M Life, good dress pants should not need belts. True. So my custom clothier and I had a total misunderstanding as to what I wanted for like side adjusters. And so she's like, "We can't do that." I'm like, "What do you mean you can't put side adjusters? Like every other custom clothier can do this." And so like these pants actually have belt loops, and I'm like, I was still just confused like to this day about that. And I'm trying to commission like a tuxedo from her, and I'm like, "Are you sure you can't do side adjusters? Because like it seems like something ridiculously easy, and this is gonna cost you like a really big sale. So you're gonna really want to like think this through, that you cannot do this, right?" And once we actually talked out, she thought that I was talking about this other mechanism entirely that was elastic and internal to the pant. I'm like, no, 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 no. It's just like a belt buckle side adjuster thing on this. It's just, oh, we can totally do that. I'm like, that saved a monster commission for you. So yes, but good dress pants should not need belts. That is true. Bert, I noticed that your acro skin is looking a little thin right now. Don't they always? Do you not raise your nutrients right now or struggle in that area at this time? No, I wouldn't say that it's anything like particularly out of the ordinary, to be perfectly honest. I think if anything, it might be they were dipped somewhat recently. And dipping, guys, it obviously it serves a purpose, but it's hard on the corals, and sometimes it can be that way. But I'm actually okay with I'm more okay with my acros now than in months past. 6 months ago we had some absolute fire, so we're not back to that level yet, but we're on the right trend. It's like a journey just said, "Man, I just got a lesson I didn't know I needed." It was funny. I was talking to another friend like last night about like that trip to Michigan, and when I brought up like the whole bed thing, like she was, I was like, I was telling her about this, and I was like, I bet you weren't expecting when you texted me that you'd be hearing all about the benefits of handmade Swedish horsehair beds. It was kind of funny. I am a fountain of useless knowledge, you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you. Jay, how do I send you a pic of the Cyphastria I bought from you a few years back that I killed in a tank move? Bummer. I'm wondering if you still have a frag I can buy. We might. And also, like when you rewatch this stream, like the first several corals were all safe astrea, just so you can check. But if you want to email us, support@tidalgardens.com, and most likely Ben will be answering. Look good, feel good. Yeah, there's something to that too. There's definitely something to that. Sometimes you have to like mess with your own psychology. Like back in the day, I used to do martial arts. I was doing like karate and taekwondo, and when I bought like a better quality uniform, I actually got better at martial arts. It's the weirdest thing, but it's 100% true. It's like just mentally feeling better about how you look and how everything feels on you makes a difference. Oh yeah, so B was saying I was talking to Than about some coral something, and he was like, "But look at this jacket." Yeah, I totally did that. I just totally just like stopped the conversation dead in its tracks. I was like sending her some Instagram photos. Jordan M, I bumped my Patreon tier another level for Than's fashion articles and videos. I'm not gonna do it. Not gonna do the money thing with the style. When are you coming out with the line of ties? That's hilarious. Peter T, I love dressing up when I'm in the office. Only thing is I stand out like a sore thumb with everyone dressed down these days. You know what, Peter? Don't even worry about that. Don't even worry about that one bit. When I go to trade shows, everybody is wearing like a clownfish t-shirt. That is the acceptable work attire at like any reef show, okay? Except not this guy. I look like this, right? And I mean, well, part of it is like I'm perfectly comfortable because I will dress up for any occasion, like inappropriately formally dressed. I don't care. Like I'll go in any opportunity. I'm going in. Julian Contreras, Stan, are you having another barbecue soon? Barbecue is going to be like a very super unlikely. However, we will be starting to take appointments for local shopping again. So we've been like closed off for like a good 3 years now from like just people coming in and shopping. But we might be opening it up for select slots. We wanted to do this earlier, and then somebody here got COVID. So it's like, but now that we're a little bit more COVID negative, we're looking at restarting that in early December. So mark your calendars if you want to make a visit and shop. Missing out on some unclaimed revenue with the fashion industry here. Yeah, I know. I'd be good too, you guys. I'd be good. So, it's obviously it's a different market and all that stuff, but it is something that I would have to like make absolutely sure that I was done with it as a hobby before like venturing into that, because I'm still very much enjoying this. K Dancer, what do you recommend for a cleanup crew for rocks? Currently I have 7 hermit crabs in my 55-gallon. Okay, so I'm not a 55-gallon guy. I'm not a hermit crab guy. We probably have like 0 hermit crabs here in our facility. I really, really, really like snails. And if you're looking for something that is basically like a Brillo pad for like coralline algae and stuff, that you need to go like harder on the rocks than what a snail would do, you can go for like urchins. So urchins, I would probably recommend something like a tuxedo. Like they can really get down in there and like really scrub a rock clean and be gentle enough with coral. They can like grab stuff and like go running around with it, so you do have to be careful of that. But in general, those are the 2 things that I would go with to keep rocks nice and clean. Speaking of unclaimed revenue, imagine a Drake's and Tidal Gardens Pocket Square tie collab. Drake's is cool. I actually have a tie from Drake's. They're not my like absolute brand of choice for, okay, guys, I'm gonna throw this plug out there. They'll never care. They'll never see this. It's okay. So my favorite necktie brand is Charvet. They're French. They make the best shirts on earth, hands down. But I like their ties a lot. One of these days, so there's a problem with me going and getting a shirt at Charvet. It takes multiple fittings. I ain't gonna go to Paris 4 times for a shirt. So that aside, they make wonderful ties. This bow tie is from an Australian company called Lenaud Papillon. Okay, and I've heard from like some style people that I trust that it's like those who know the best bow ties in the world come from Nicholas at Lenaud Papillon. And I bought one bow tie and I'm like, well, I'm addicted. And now I have over a dozen, and I regularly text with Nicholas in Australia about bow ties and about all their accessories. This cashmere scarf, also from Australia. Wonderful. Okay. Anyway, you guys. Anyway. Life. Do you post to the UK? I do not, unfortunately. This is US only. Studying. Okay. Let's see. Life. Studying to become a vet. Although comfy scrubs aren't my look, always. The nice fitting suits look amazing. Don't know how that will fare with such tropical weather. It'll be fine. So you can get tropical weight fabrics, and there are actually fabrics such as like seersucker, which is a type of a cotton, that are made to be worn in hot tropical weather that breathe really easily and will keep you like fairly cool. Let's see. Favorite shoes? Are you a wingtip man? I'm not a wingtip guy. I'm an Oxford guy. But the shoes, I like John Lobb a lot. I like Bontoni a lot. That's Italian. And I shared this once on social media, but I got like these Stingray shoes from a shoe company called Stefano Bemmer. Stefano Bemmer is no longer with us, but his shoe company still persists. Stefano Bemmer was kind of famous, aside from shoes, because when the actor Daniel Day-Lewis from like Last of the Mohicans and Abraham Lincoln, that guy, he decided to be like a shoe cobbler for like a year. So he quit acting for like a year and went and apprenticed under Stefano Bemmer. So whenever I look at these like beautiful Stingray shoes, I always like think in the back of my head, it's like, I wonder if Daniel Day-Lewis made these shoes for me. Anyway, cool story. So those are probably like my 3 favorite brands. So it's John Lobb, like the quintessential UK London shoe. My favorite Italian brand, Bontoni, and probably like a close second is Stefano Bemmer. Let's see, Than, what kind of corals do you think would look great in a planted reef tank that runs primarily on white lights? I would take a look at like a video I made about daylight corals. A couple of people were interested in daylight coral that show off the coral the best under that type of lighting. The only thing that in a planted reef tank that I would be a little bit worried about is like the encroachment of the algae on the coral. You really have to keep that stuff well pruned. So keep that in mind. My long spiny urchin likes to snack on the nicest zoas, believes the ugly ones. Things can happen like that. That is true. The addiction happened quickly. Yes, I think I have an addictive personality for like dumb stuff. So I was like addicted to World of Warcraft. I was addicted to Coca-Cola, like sweet things in general. I have like a total sweet tooth. You can put like a 6-pack of beer in my fridge. I'll never drink it. I'll eventually give it away. But sweet things, yeah, that's my jam right there. And right now I'm kind of addicted to the internet. That I need to low key end that stuff. I'm on it a little bit too much. Kevin Smith, the meter just tipped on the bougie scale. Nah, dude. I'm not even joking when I say this. When I dress up, I am making an honest to God effort to be the best dressed person on earth that day. Like, I'm gonna go so hard into it. Like, I like it so much that, like, some of like the fabrics. So this particular fabric here, okay, that's making up this vest is a fabric house called Skabal. Okay, they make fabrics for suits that, no joke, are $50,000. Like Russian oligarch, crazy, expensive fabrics that are made from like vicuña, which is like this alpaca-looking thing in the Andes that is an unfarmable herbivore llama thing. Okay, look it up, a vicuña. They have to get all like the villagers together and like make a human fence and herd these wild animals together, grab them, shear them, and let them back go into the Andes Mountains, which is a slightly dangerous activity, right? Only to get like so many ounces per year of this vicuña wool to send to London to get milled into these fabulous suiting materials. And I was in the UK at the Skabal boutique there on Savile Row, and I saw the book there, and he's like, you know, oh, so you know what that is? I'm like, yeah, I've never seen this book before. He's like, yeah, that book never leaves this place. I'm like, cool. And I was like, you know, do you sell many of these, or do you have like an entire suit that I could see? He's like, bro, we sell one of those suits every like 3 years tops. Like, we would never have a suit sitting there. It's so expensive. And actually, I think he said it was 40,000 pounds. So that might be closer to like $75,000 for a suit. Bonkers. But yes, this is Skabal. So tipping the bougie scale, yeah. It's a hobby, guys. You're never going to get into like a super cheap hobby. You're the modern Dapper Don. They might have to have a runway show of your closet at the next Magna. Be fun. You know what? I dress up for Magna. I dress up for Magna. I got some fire for you guys. So by the way, we've restarted. I'll finish up on the last bit of questions. I'll say my thank you to the Patreon and the sponsors of this, and I will let you guys get back to the rest of your weekend. I have some Halloween festivities to get to myself. It's funny, you can almost tell the noobs from the more experienced reefers. Noobs ask relative questions while the rest of us are talking about anything but coral. Funny you mentioned that, because when I was hanging out with Jake, he was like, he's like the ultra expert, because I know exactly what you mean. Like, there's like people that genuinely want to learn because they're new to the hobby. Then you have people that are in the industry forever. It's like, okay, let's just like hang out, you know, and drink and talk about anything but the hobby. And then you get back into like the super geeks, right? Like the dude from like ACI aquaculture, you know, he only wants to talk about corals. And Jake, and like there's like a sect of people that are like on that end, like the speakers at Magna, you know, that sort of thing. So that's also very fun. It's kind of like this. There's like this dip right around like a lot of like the business professionals and like the more experienced reefers, and then you get back into like the super geeks again. Great bearded reef. Great story in the shoes. I appreciate a good shoe myself. It's fun. It is fun. They last forever. What are your thoughts on 50-gallon blowboys? Not a fan. So when tanks get too shallow, they get difficult to provide flow to, and it freaks the fish out. Like, fish in shallow aquariums are super freaked out all the time. Once you get into like the deeper, like 18-20 inch tanks, it gets much more manageable for the fish and the flow generation. There's only so many pumps that you can use on like a low boy. Not my favorite. Bryce says, when I saw you at Aquashell at Dallas 2019, you're looking mighty fresh. Appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, Ric Flair ain't got nothing on you. Man, I love me some Ric Flair. Like, that's my childhood right there. He was my favorite wrestler when I was a child. He's my favorite wrestler right now. When do we get a video about your wardrobe? You might never. You just have to catch me in the wild, and you guys can ask me questions about what I'm wearing. Because I promise you, I'll tell you. All right, you guys. Real quick, let's say some thank yous. Let's start with the YouTube members. Stories Reef. What's up, Rashid? Tampa Bay Aquaculture, Herb777, Keith Holland, Justin Harden, 328 Reef, and the Patreon list. Big Lord Chi, Brandy Camp, Harkins Aquatics, Tasha Radich, Elaine Martinassi, Alan Jackson, Ann Lewis, Christopher Martin, Chuck Admire, Ernie Wallace, Greg Zimmerman, Jordan Marty, Keith Singer, Kyle Jameson, Lisa Clow, Lynn Holt, Michael Shelley, Puddle Aquatics, Rebecca Hall, Reef Infidel, Ryan Baker, Sean Howie, Skylar Korn, Sue Hemmons, The Classroom Reef, and Thomas Tarrant. And lastly, oh, there's a couple more. My bad. I need to scroll. Tim Garner, Trevor Joseph Overbeck. Thank you, guys. And for our corporate sponsors, you may have heard of them occasionally on the show. Definitely not any of the style brands. They're not sponsoring me. But we have Coral View, we have Ecotech Marine, and we have Polyp Lab. Speaking of Polyp Lab, I want to get him over here. We've been trying to work out a visit, and his flight got canceled. So unfortunately, we weren't able to hang out. But anyway, guys, thank you again. I got the 100,000. Finally, I got the silly plaque and the silly check mark by my name. And believe it, I'm super, super happy about this. So anyway, guys, it's Halloween, y'all. Go have fun. Go have fun. Have a good time. Be safe. Don't eat too much candy. And we will meet back up here later. Thanks, you guys. Take care.